Most clinic owners type random prompts in the AI tools, we use Gemini, and wonder why the output is garbage. The truth is, the results are only as good as the instructions you give. My law firm has spent hundreds of hours testing, refining, and building prompts that actually work for contracts, policies, HR, and more. And today, I'm handing you the exact ones we use. Think of this episode as a shortcut. Our prompt library, yours to steal. Stick around to the end and I'll give you the master prompt list that will save your clinic hours of work each week. Here's the thing. When most people try to use AI, they don't get the best results. And so they give up. That's it. There's a popular saying, garbage in equals garbage out. And the way that I learned this firsthand is, about 20 years ago, I, in undergrad, was a biomedical engineer. And we would spend a lot of our time coding. And so we were working on medical devices, we were learning about the human body, and then we would also have to learn how to code. And so I got to see the big back world of the systems that have now evolved into a version of AI and the actual systems that take what you put in as the prompt and turn it into some sort of post-prompt solution. And what I learned by that is if you have bad code, so the underlying code, all of the little lines of code are actually correct, but you put junk inside, it's just going to create garbage on the other side. So I'm going to talk a little bit about prompts. Prompts are what we actually put into the AI in order to influence the solution. And AI, as smart as it is, doesn't know exactly what you want. It can't read your mind. It can't, figure out everything for you. It needs a little bit of guiding. And in fact, the more guiding, the better. So when you give a prompt, you want to include your role, who you are, context, where we are, format, how you'd like to see the solution, and goal. What is the ultimate goal of what you're doing? And if you just say, review this contract, right? Or very small, short prompts, you'll get some sort of output, but garbage in, garbage out. If you're not giving it a good prompt to let the actual code do its job, unfortunately on the back end, it's going to be as robust as your prompt. So it's really not that difficult to have a good prompt. I've developed a bunch for you. I want you to use them. What I see, unfortunately, clinicians doing and my clients doing is they're wasting all this time trying to reinvent prompts daily. And it's very unnecessary. Now, there are some really good prompts out there, and with a little bit of tailoring, they will do very well for your circumstances. But we don't need to become prompt engineers. We don't need to become AI, super research experts. We can build off of what other people have already done, like a law firm that's doing this all day, every day with hundreds of clients, and just use that prompt under the right scenarios. So here's the first step that I have for you. We're going to have a reusable prompt library. You're going to have your own library that you are copying and pasting, or your staff. And when we have certain situations arise in our company, we are going to pull in the prompt and it's going to do the solution. We're not going to think and have all this creative, prompt engineering. We have good prompts that have already been used and tested as of today. We're going to make use of those. And I'm actually going to show you how we do this live. So make sure you hang tight. But for now, let me give you the categories of prompts every clinic should have. All right. So from doing this for hundreds of hours and going to engineering degree, law school, and doing all of this prompting, I've finally broken it down into a bunch of categories. And hopefully this is going to be a good way to accelerate your business and use of AI. So first big category is going to be contract prompts. It's going to be employment contracts, vendor contracts. So, your medical devices, laser devices, your software, all of that, and your service agreements. So the agreements that go alongside the vendor contracts. That's category number one, contract prompts. Number two is going to be compliance prompts. So remember what we talked about in a previous episode about HIPAA, OSHA, incident reporting, keeping the space clean. These can be greatly assisted with good prompting in compliance, especially after the fact when we're actually doing some of the responding to those agencies as well. The third category is going to be HR prompts, human resources prompts. So this is going to create legally compliant job descriptions, legally compliant policies that are compliant with state and federal law, as well as training outlines. Another category is patient communication prompts. This is going to be letters, frequently asked questions, and scripts when we're communicating with patients. A really good example of this that I see medical clinics get into trouble with is there's a Google review, and it's not 5 stars, it's 2 stars, it's 3 stars. And that patient has put all sorts of information about their procedure and all sorts of stuff that's, very personally identifiable information, PHI. And it is very tempting as the business owner to go and blast and say what they are saying is incorrect. It's very tempting. In fact, the first thing that most clients want to do, and that they do. The issue with that is that that is likely protected health information. You can't respond. It's very weird. But there are prompts and things that you can say that acknowledge that the person exists, say how they can communicate with you, and do that in a HIPAA-compliant manner. You've probably seen this before if you've looked at other clinic reviews, especially when you're being nosy and digging around for the 1 and 2 star reviews. The really good and effective business owners have that ready to go. It's already sitting there. It's been prompted. And there's very little tailoring that goes on. More importantly, that you have that prompt itself. The last one, and probably one of the most important ones, in my opinion, is going to be the marketing prompts. So legally compliant marketing is a cheat code for you to differentiate yourself and have a competitive advantage over the other players in your industry. Why is that? It's because healthcare regulations are just a legal minefield. Everyone thinks there's fee splitting and kickbacks and Stark law and all sorts of things that can get you in trouble, which is true. What I see is that just has business owners living in fear and not doing a lot of the things that they probably could be doing had they actually known that they had a prompt that they could use that was legally compliant for their marketing. With these categories in place, the final step is building your clinic's own prompt library. So here's how you're going to use these prompts. You're going to start with our tested prompts that I'm giving you here. You're going to store them, just like my law firm does, on a shared Docker system. So we have a repeatable way that we're using the prompts every day. We've directed both ourselves and our staff on how and where to use them. We don't have staff that are just kind of off experimenting by themselves. Although we like the entrepreneurial flair, we have a system in place. But if that does happen, we can encourage them to provide feedback on that protocol. So we're training our staff on safe usage and reviewing that. What I mean by safe usage is, again, with HIPAA, protected health information, when you put information into AI, like Gemini, ChatGPT, what have you, it may not necessarily be a HIPAA secure platform. Now, usually the paid versions, for example, we use Gemini. We are a HIPAA implicated entity because we're working with healthcare companies. Gemini in Google's Gemini at the elevated paid version is HIPAA compliant. But people don't think about that just, as a staff person, as an employer contractor working on behalf of your company. And so you need to make sure that the rule is you use our version, not one on your phone that you may have gotten from before and got good at. There's a reason why we're doing that way. We had to do that at our law firm. I had a lot of staff that loved ChatGPT versus Gemini versus another platform, and they were using free versions to experiment with stuff. And I said, no. Use the paid version. You do it only in our workspace. That's HIPAA secure, and we can kind of control the environment that it's going on. Finally, you're just building this library. That way you have speed, ease of use, consistency, and compliance. We don't have some people who are really good at AI and use it in some situations, and others who don't know how to use it, have never heard of it, but have been with your company for a decade, right? So the library becomes an integrated part of the company itself. So now that I've shown you how to build out a prompt library, let me show you the power of a good prompt in action. All right, so we're gonna do a live demonstration of these prompts in action. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna click record on my screen, and we are gonna get into it. So the cool thing about these prompts is that they can get more sophisticated. In fact, some of the prompts we use at our firm are pages and pages and pages. I want to provide one that's a little bit more simple, just so we're getting the basic concepts. So I have this prompt right here, and I'm going to read it, and then I'll explain why and what's going on. So it says here, as an experienced lawyer, your task is to scrutinize and summarize the main points of the given legal documents. The document may involve legal jargon, terms, and concepts which you should simplify and present in a way that a layperson can understand. Your summary should be concise, yet comprehensive enough to cover all significant details and legal implications. Please highlight any potential legal issues or concerns that may arise from the document and proactively offer solutions, steps, or creative feedback to address them. Also note specifically what additional information or questions you would ask to enable a more in-depth analysis. Actually, that last sentence is one of my most favorite ones because I'm actually asking AI what additional information could make a better response. Because I may not be a perfect prompter, but AI could have a brief conversation with me before they give a result. So the reason I like this prompt is I'm telling them who I am, right? It's saying I'm a lawyer. Now, you may not be a lawyer. You should actually have a lawyer look at your work if you're going to call it legal work, but you're telling the AI machine who they are, who their role is. Then you're telling it what's going on. You're reviewing legal documents, okay? It's telling AI the output. I want to read it like a layperson. I don't want to, go back and forth in old English, legalese. I want to actually understand what I'm looking at. And then we're finally prompting it for the format. Give me some proactive solutions, like focus on the issues themselves and make that be part of what you're giving me back. So this is a sample prompt and we're going to put it in action right now. What I've actually done, so at our firm, we use the Google or G Suite tools, the biggest one being Gemini that I have right here. Happens to be currently on the Gemini Ultra version here in fall of 2025. What I've done for fun, big fan of Google, we've just put in the Google terms of use. So this is their terms of service publicly available on their website. And I put in the prompt itself. I'm going to hit submit. And in the background now with this prompt, what you're seeing here is we get a nice output here summarizing the key terms of the relationship, the scope. And I think what's pretty fun and cool about what Google did is they made a decision compared to the next one we're going to do where their lawyers or their business team, in a very Google-esque way, actually made their contract pretty short and simple to read, which I thought was pretty fun. There's something to be learned there. But if you look here at the screen about intellectual property, right? And one of my favorite ones is how much damages you can get here with the $200 or the fees paid by the user in the last 12 months. And finally outlining, as I told it to do, the potential legal issues and concerns. Now, I'm quite confident that Google's terms of use, like most terms of use, are take it or leave it, non-negotiable, right? You land on the website, you can get them. But you could see how you could use this in a lease agreement, right? A vendor or service agreement, and a bunch of other scenarios where you simply upload a document using the add file tool and you let it go. Let's do another one here. So I just Googled the top med spa device, and it looks like this company has won out in terms of SEO. I clicked on it, and then I found their publicly available terms of conditions and sale. And I have no ill will against the company. This is all for educational purposes and fair use. And I have put in my prompt, and I've simply copy and pasted their terms of use. This one, unlike Google's, is a massive amount of text. I think if you actually typed it out, it's in the 20 to 30 pages and very legalese. But look at how Gemini and AI with that prompt is now breaking it down. Now, these terms are not fun for the consumer. You can see these right at the beginning. In fact, some of these were I thought kind of funny, but like this one right here. There's an unreasonably short notice for defects. Requiring you to report a product defect in writing within just 5 days of discovery is extremely restrictive. This short window is impractical for a complex piece of equipment and could leave you with no remedy if you don't discover the issue immediately. This is what I was talking about before on some of these medical spa devices. You're spending tens of thousands of dollars. In fact, usually hundreds of thousands of dollars. You're financing the equipment and, okay, you don't hire an attorney. I prefer that you did, but you didn't even run it through a prompt in AI that I gave you on this podcast to be able to look at just what you're actually signing. Because I doubt you read through that contract line by line. You probably got a quicker version of it from the sales rep. So those are just 2 live examples here of how you can use these prompts in action. And I really strongly encourage you to make use of them yourself. Now you've seen our law firm's prompt in action. If you want to access our library of legal prompts, make sure to click the link in the description and we'd be happy to send that over to you. Next, let's switch gears and talk about a very specific kind of startup. How to legally launch a plastic surgery or cosmetic surgery center from the ground up.